Yes, my friends, things are heating up behind the scenes in Denver, and we need to talk about a move that could end up being much more important than it looks right now. We know how valuable pass rushers are in the NFL, and man, the Denver Broncos cannot afford to lose that pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I really want to see this team reach the Super Bowl. That is the dream, and why not believe it can happen this year? A lot of Broncos fans are excited about Ron Stone Jr. and the upside he brings after putting up impressive numbers in the UFL. Others are wondering what this move really means for Jonathan Cooper and the rest of this loaded edge rusher room. I want to know which side you are on. Do you think Ron Stone Jr. can become another hidden gem for Denver? Or do you believe the Broncos should have gone after a proven veteran pass rusher instead? Write your opinion below. And if you have been a Denver Broncos fan for more than 15 years, hit that like button hard. Alright, let's talk about Ron Stone Jr. and why this signing suddenly became one of the most interesting stories on the Broncos roster. Now let's get straight into it, because the Broncos' newest move deserves attention. Denver signed Ron Stone Jr., and the timing is interesting because of everything surrounding the outside linebacker group and Jonathan Cooper. For a while, one of the questions hanging around this team has been whether Denver might need additional help on the edge. If the Broncos were seriously worried about possibly being without Cooper, there were experienced names available that they could have chased. Von Miller was mentioned as one possibility. Jadeveon Clowney was another veteran option. Hasten Reddick was also out there, and he has connections to Vance Joseph. Denver could have gone in that direction if the organization believed it desperately needed a proven veteran right now. But that is not what the Broncos did. Instead, they went in a completely different direction and added Ron Stone Jr., a young player with a very intriguing background and the kind of upside that makes this final preseason game much more interesting than it was a few days ago. To create the roster space, Denver waived Hakeem Butler. Butler was one of those UFL additions that created excitement because the physical talent was impossible to ignore. He had the size. He had the speed. At around 6'5", he looked like the kind of receiver who might give the Broncos something unusual if everything came together. Wade Phillips had personally spoken highly of his talent, which only added to the excitement surrounding him. But potential only matters if it turns into production. During the preseason, the Broncos simply did not get enough from Butler. There was a play against Green Bay where he had an opportunity on a potential touchdown pass, and instead of seeing the kind of aggressive effort you would expect from a receiver with that size, the play left you wanting more. For someone fighting for a roster spot, those moments matter. And this is something I really appreciate about what Denver is doing right now. When the Broncos believe something is not working, they are willing to move quickly. There is no reason to keep holding on to an experiment simply because everybody liked the idea when it started. You evaluate it. You see what happens on the field. And if the answer is not there, you move on and give somebody else an opportunity. That somebody is Ron Stone Jr. And Broncos country. This is where things get interesting. Stone is 6'3" and around 257 pounds, and football is absolutely part of this family. His father, Ron Stone, played in the NFL from 1993 through 2005 as an offensive lineman. Think about the advantage that can give a young defensive player. You grow up around somebody who understands offensive line technique at the highest level. You can learn how blockers think, how they position their hands, how they try to control pass rushers, and what defenders can do to make their lives uncomfortable. There is another fascinating connection in his family as well. Ron Stone Jr.'s brother-in-law is Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love. So imagine the football conversations around that family. His father spent years playing offensive line in the NFL, and his brother-in-law plays quarterback for the Packers. Stone is trying to make a living doing the exact thing offensive linemen and quarterbacks hate: getting into the backfield and destroying plays. That does not guarantee anything, obviously. Family connections do not earn sacks for you. They do not earn roster spots. Stone still has to prove that he belongs. But when you combine that background with what he has already shown as a pass rusher, you can understand why Denver wanted to take a closer look.
Stone played his college football at Washington State, where he faced Bo Nix during Nix's time at Oregon. According to the information we have, Stone finished his Washington State career with strong pass rush production and showed that ability against good competition. He also had experience facing Colorado and getting after Shedeur Sanders. After college, Stone had an opportunity with the Las Vegas Raiders, but that situation did not turn into a permanent NFL home. Instead of disappearing, however, he continued playing and ended up in the UFL. And that part matters. Sometimes fans hear UFL and immediately assume the competition should be ignored. But Broncos fans should know better by now because Denver has already found value through that route. Dondrea Tillman is the obvious example. He came from that environment and proved he could contribute to the Broncos' defense. That gives Denver a reason to continue looking carefully at players who may have taken a different road to the NFL. Stone produced 9.5 sacks in the UFL according to the information discussed here, and when you watch the way he attacks the quarterback, the thing that immediately stands out is effort. He keeps coming. That is important because not every sack is created by simply beating an offensive tackle cleanly in 2 seconds. Sometimes an edge rusher changes a play by collapsing the pocket. Sometimes he forces the quarterback to move. Sometimes he creates pressure that allows somebody else to finish. Sometimes the quarterback escapes once, and the defender has to keep chasing. Stone appears to have that motor. He keeps pushing into the backfield. He creates confusion. He forces the offense to react. And he plays with the kind of energy that can make a coaching staff want to see more. That brings us directly to Vance Joseph. Joseph has already indicated that Broncos fans should be ready to see plenty of Stone in the preseason finale against the Minnesota Vikings. Denver did not bring him in just to stand on the sideline. They want to evaluate him immediately. And apparently, there were already encouraging signs in practice. Joseph noted that Stone was showing some of the disciplined pass rush techniques Denver teaches. That is a very interesting detail because when a player arrives this late, especially someone desperate to get noticed, it would be easy for him to attack every snap like he has to personally create a sack. Instead, the early impression was that he was already trying to execute within the structure of the defense. That is exactly what coaches want. Now, nobody should immediately declare that Ron Stone Jr. is guaranteed to become a major contributor. He has not earned that yet. But this is the perfect kind of late preseason addition. There is very little downside in giving him the opportunity, and the potential reward is significant. Maybe Stone becomes another example of Denver finding useful talent outside the traditional path. Maybe he surprises everyone and forces himself into the conversation. Or maybe the Broncos simply want to see what he can do before roster decisions arrive. Either way, Friday night suddenly has another player Broncos fans need to watch closely. And the Stone signing also makes the situation at edge rusher even more interesting because Denver already appears to feel very good about the group. Vance Joseph specifically praised K. Robinson and made it clear that Robinson could become an important part of